Hi, I'm John Maxwell. When the top companies in the world are looking for trainers, speakers, and coaches, there's one name that stands above the rest, and that's Maxwell Leadership. Our certified team members have gotten proven results for companies all over the globe, and our reputation, I'm proud to say, is second to none. Some of our members have risen to the top of their profession, including the one you're going to meet today. I proudly introduce you to my friend Bob Fabian Zinka.
Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ, where we help you lead with purpose and succeed with impact. If you're ready to grow into the kind of leader others want to follow, this podcast is for you. If you're determined to elevate your success and leave a lasting legacy, this podcast is for you. As my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell reminds us, everything rises and falls on leadership. Our goal is simple: to inspire you, challenge you, and equip you with insights that can transform the trajectory of your leadership journey. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach BZ.
Celeste Warren, a transformative leader who has dedicated her entire career championing diversity, equity, and inclusion.
It's more important than ever now to approach things thoughtfully and strategically to make progress in today's complex environment.
During her time as a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at a global Fortune 100 company, Celeste has reshaped corporate culture for global success. Celeste has been recognized for her outstanding work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Honored with prestigious titles like Top Executives in Global Diversity and Chief Diversity Officer of the Year, Celeste's impact resonates worldwide. Celeste serves on influential boards, contributing her expertise to drive meaningful change. She is also co-founder of Destination STEM, a nonprofit created to provide resources to students of color and students in need pursuing degrees in STEM. Celeste Warren, a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change.
All right. Thank you for watching this next episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast. I am so grateful you are here. Please let us know where you are joining us from, what city, what state, and also what you are grateful for today. As you know, we want to start the show with what we call a moment of gratitude. And I think it is so important, especially for those like me who have served in uniform. It's about 21, 22 service members and veterans who commit suicide in this country every single day. And we believe that it's not possible to be grateful and suicidal at the very same time. So if you would, as is our tradition here, maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath, put yourself in your happy place and think about one thing you are grateful for right now. Since Juneteenth, we've been grateful on the show for freedom. I believe human beings were meant to be free. Like Pat Henry said, right, give me liberty or give me death. And from Juneteenth to July 4th, I want to be so grateful for the freedom we have in this country, and especially for the men and women in uniform who have fought and many times given their life, done the unimaginable, really, the extreme sacrifice so that we could be free. America, the home of the brave, the land of the free. And I'm talking about freedom for everybody, including African American. Of course, African American weren't included on July 4th, 76. We had to wait until basically 1865 before we became free and in this country. But I am so glad that we are free and we want to keep that freedom. And that's what I'm so grateful for. Okay, let me see if I can quickly introduce my illustrious guest today. I am really excited to welcome my friend and author, speaker, transformational leader, Celeste Warren, to the Leadership and Success podcast today. After an extraordinary 20 plus year of career at Merck, where she rose to become vice president and chief diversity and inclusion officer, Celeste continues her mission of helping organizations create environment where both people and performance thrive. Today, she leads Celeste Warren Consulting, and she's the co-founder of Destination STEM, a nonprofit dedicated to expand opportunities for students pursuing career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She is also the author of two outstanding books. We're going to be focusing today on the truth about equity, what it really is, what it isn't, and why everyone wins when we get it right. But she's also the author of a best-selling book, How to Be a Diversity and Inclusion Ambassador. Her message is simple but quite powerful. Leadership isn't about lowering standard, it is about removing barriers so everyone has the opportunity to contribute and succeed. That includes African American and women. So, as a cybersecurity executive and information warfare commander in the US Navy, I do believe that the best leaders create conditions where people can perform at their highest level. That's exactly what this conversation is going to be all about. Part of what we're going to be learning today is the truth about equity and why everyone wins when we get it right. Everyone. All right. We're also going to be talking about practical ways to lead with courage, with empathy, and accountability. So, without any further ado, please help me welcome to the Leadership and Success podcast the one and only Celeste Warren. Good morning. How are you doing today?
You. Good morning to you too, Bob. That was a wonderful, wonderful introduction and so energetic. I love this energy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a great privilege to be talking with you today. I think it was maybe back in January, I think, maybe February, when I first sent you the invite, but I'm just so glad we were able to make this work out. I've been looking forward to speaking with you. You do a work that is so important, especially right now in 2026, if you can believe it. Maybe to get started, what is one thing you are grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my family, my faith.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the life that I've led so far and being able to have the opportunities that I've had so far. And I know that it's grace and mercy that has basically got me to where I am right now. And it'll keep on getting me there, moving forward in this next leg of my life's journey.
Amen to that. And sometimes I wonder, why is faith so important, especially with the type of work that you do, and when you think about the struggle of African American in this country from the very beginning until now. And it is just amazing to me, right? The faith we have in God, in what our country could be, and really the faith in our fellow U.S. Citizen, fellow American, right, in doing the right thing and being more inclusive. But anyway, I am just awed and amazed by the strength, the resilience, and the faith we have demonstrated over and over and over again. Is there something about you that's maybe unique, maybe one of your superpowers, something that most people may not know when they first meet you?
It's interesting. The roles that I've had, the journey that I've had in life, people think that I'm an extrovert, and I'm not. I am an introvert. Anyone who knows me very, very well understands that I am an introvert. I have, after decades of being in the field that I've been in and having to have to engage with people and being on stages and things like that, I have coping mechanisms and things that I do.
Wow.
But I am an introvert, and when I tell people that, initially they kind of look at me and go, "What?" So they don't believe me, but it's true. I love to just curl up in a blanket on my couch and watch good movies, and with
Yes.
with my husband, my daughter, my son, and other close friends. So yeah, that's
Wow,
me.
you could fool me for sure. And talking about stage, recently you've been on the TEDx stage. I know it's not out yet, but it will be soon. So congratulations for that. Man, look at you, are just everywhere doing all kinds of things. Do you have time to sleep? My goodness. Wow. Incredible.
I do. I do have time to sleep.
That's amazing. I want to talk about the leader behind the mission. I just learned that your father was actually the very first African American teacher and principal in his district. That's pretty awesome. What leadership lesson did you learn from watching him navigate barriers with dignity and perseverance?
Yeah, my father was the first Black teacher and principal in Western Pennsylvania and
Wow,
Eastern Ohio. And
that's
so every day he would come home from work, and my mom would ask him at the dinner table, "Honey, how was your day?" Any normal question. And he would then proceed to tell her about the challenges that he faced, the obstacles that he faced.
amazing.
But he didn't just talk about the challenges and the obstacles. He talked about what he did to overcome them.
Wow.
And listening to their conversation, I had a front row seat to all of those sort of foundational elements that shaped me throughout
Mhm.
my entire life. So, what I learned from both my mom and my dad, because my mom was the CFO, COO of our household.
Yes.
And so, when she would ask him these questions and they were engaging in the conversation, my mother was from the heart of Pittsburgh. So she was from the north side of Pittsburgh, where at that time, most of the African Americans lived. And
Mhm.
my father was from that same small steel mill town that I grew up in. And
Wow.
so I had her fire. She was sort of an activist. So when my dad would say, "This is what happened," she would get all fired up and say, "Well, you should have done this and you should have done that." And he would just basically, he was a very calm, disciplined leader,
Mm.
direct and forthcoming, but very calm. So he was sort of, it was like earth and fire.
That's really beautiful.
So
Wow.
I learned throughout the leadership traits that I learned was that passion is good. So I have that passion
Mm.
from my mother, and also leading with discipline, with directness,
Yes.
with discernment as well.
Wow.
I think is really, really important, and those skills have been with me, like I said, since
That's
childhood,
amazing.
teenager, and adult.
That is so wonderful to hear. Was there maybe a moment in your childhood when you kind of realized, maybe your life's work would involve creating opportunities, not just for yourself, but for other people?
It's so interesting, Bob. When I was a child, I was a student athlete. I played basketball and I played volleyball in high school, and then in college, I got a scholarship at the University of Kentucky to play volleyball. And so for
Wow.
me, growing up, I wanted to be a reporter, and I wanted to be a sports
Really?
reporter too, news
Wow.
and sports. And so everything was pigeonholed in that career path. So I was on,
Mhm.
in high school, I was on the school newspaper staff and yearbook. In college, I was one of the first Black females to be a sports reporter for the
Wow.
University of Kentucky newspaper. I had my own radio talk show, and I was just loving it. And after I graduated from undergraduate, I was a reporter at the largest radio station there in Kentucky,
Mm.
and so the challenge was I wasn't making hardly any money, and I had to keep writing home and calling home to my mom and dad and like, can you help me out with rent for my apartment? And it was embarrassing, because I'm supposed to be adulting. I
Mm.
graduated from college and I was supposed to be, this mature woman career woman, and having me have to write home was kind of demeaning to me. So I kept thinking, okay, as soon as I get that television job, I'm
Mm.
going to be making, money. And so I got an interview for the ABC affiliate
Wow.
television station there in Lexington. And I went and interviewed and I got the job. They sent
Hey.
me the contract for the role. And Bob, it was only a few $100s more than what I was making as a radio reporter.
Oh.
I was so just dejected. I went through what I call pre mid-career crisis. So here's something that I had been wishing for since I was like in the 8th grade. I
Wow.
wanted to be, you remember, Robin Roberts, she's on Good Morning America
Mhm.
now, but she used
Yeah.
to be on ESPN. So I wanted to be the next Robin Roberts.
Mm.
And so I was so disappointed and just dejected. And I was talking to my older sister, and she was a teacher. It followed in the path of my father,
Yeah.
and she lived in near home in Pittsburgh, and she was saying, well, why don't you go back to grad school? Why don't you go to grad school, and then you have time to kind of think about the pivot that you want to make with your career. And
Mm.
so I was like, oh, I wasn't one of those people that loved school. I wasn't it was just for me a means to an end.
Mhm.
And so, but in our household with my parents, it wasn't, do you want to go to college? It was, which college do you want to go to?
Yes. Yes.
So, um, so I said, you know what? Yeah, I will, because I was really at this sort of inflection point,
Mhm.
and I loved what I did, but I just wasn't. I wasn't the type to want to rely on my parents. I was very independent. And so I turned down the job. I left Lexington, my mother talked me into coming back near home. And I ended up at Carnegie Mellon University with a master's degree. And so I got the master's degree in management and human resources management, and started in that field. And it was sort of, it fit me like, a hand to a glove. It was
Yes.
perfect for
Wow.
me. How do you,
That's
looking
powerful.
at people, looking at how do you get the most out of people? How do you match and align the organization's interests and goals with the
Mhm.
employees' goals? So how do you line all that stuff up? And this is where the learnings from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, where it really
Yes.
just stood out and came out, because I was doing what I needed to do to make sure that whatever I was creating, whatever policies, strategies, initiatives, that we weren't
Yes.
leaving anyone behind,
Wow.
and
That's
and
powerful.
everyone had a place in the systems and the infrastructure that we were creating.
Wow, that's really something. That's a good segue for my next question, because you spent
Uh-huh.
what 28 years at Merck, and you rose to become, like I said in the intro, VP and Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer. What prepared you for that level of leadership?
Um, well, I think, the early childhood was the foundation with
Hmm.
my parents. Um, what I went through you can imagine going to Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, at that time it was the 80s. Um, so there was a lot of learning there, being in the
Hmm.
South and coming from Pittsburgh, and from Western Pennsylvania, and not really, having seen it and knowing that that inequity exists,
Hmm.
but seeing it in the South, that was a whole different story. Even on the campus I was at, after I graduated and I started working, you kind of saw it, alive and well there, just permeating in the culture.
Mm.
Uh, so that helped me to see about, wow, look at this, look at it, front and center. And then also, uh, just when I was creating in human resources and looking at the organizations that I was working with, and seeing the inequities, and understanding that it didn't just start with the people. You have to really look at
Yes.
the processes, the systemic things. And
Hmm.
so I learned that, young, and maybe even not truly been able to understand and put and articulate it as I can right now, but knowing that it goes beyond just the people. You got to look at the things that are causing
Yes.
challenges for the people. And it kind of clicked for me what my father was talking about, because he was
Mm.
trying to not just survive, but thrive in a system that wasn't created for him. It
Yes.
wasn't created for a black man back in the 60s and 50s. And so for me, it started to click as I grew in my career, that it's not just about making sure that you have representation in the organization, but you have to look at the policies, the procedures, the practices, and all of that, because that's kind of
Wow.
what my father was talking about back then. All of
Yes.
the what he called inequities and the
Hmm.
lack of diversity and lack of inclusive culture.
Yes. Wow. That is really powerful. Looking back now, what adversity shaped you the most as a leader?
What adversity?
Hmm.
Ooh, um, whenever I didn't get something that I wanted badly, um, from the standpoint of your career, from the standpoint of things that you learn in your career. So I can remember I went to a role, and this was with the first company that I was with. And because I was with a few different companies before I came to Merck, and I can remember getting a job, and I came in with about 4 or 5 other people at the same time, and we all had similar type experience.
Hmm.
And I remember I was talking with a colleague, and for some reason she brought up how much she was paid
Mm.
and how much they paid her, and it hit me like a ton of bricks because I was paid
Wow.
several $1,000s less than she was. And I mean, you talk about inequity hitting you in the face. And I
Mm.
don't know why she shared with me what she was making, um, but she did. And I didn't share with her what I was making. And I remember the impact that it had on me,
Wow.
how I felt devalued, how I felt marginalized, how I felt that they didn't value what I brought to the table, my skills, my capabilities, my strengths.
Hmm.
And so that stayed with me for a long for it was several weeks. I just sat on it. I didn't do anything about it. And then I eventually had a conversation with with my manager about it. And of course, it's so funny because the first thing that they say is, "Well, they shouldn't have told you that. She shouldn't have told you and give you that information because it's like kind of don't ask, don't tell. You don't talk about compensation back then. You don't talk about what
Mm.
you think." And um, kind of the unspoken rules
Yeah.
in the culture. And I said, well, she did, and we came at the same time, our backgrounds, same similar experience, but
Hmm.
she's a white female, she's making this, I'm a black female, and I'm making this, and I don't see that as fair and equitable at all. And so through the conversations, um, and I learned to at that point to advocate for myself,
Yes.
elevate my voice, because who else is going to do it for me, right?
Hmm.
And eventually it got corrected. The situation was corrected, but
Wow.
yeah, that was the biggest lesson for me as far as adversity, that told me that you have to speak up for yourself. You have
Mm.
to kind of be aware of what's going on around you, and understand that sometimes systems aren't fair and unbiased.
Wow. That is really powerful. How are you then different today because of this experience?
Well, I'm different today because I I make sure that I'm aware. I never was a type of leader, um, especially in the corporate environment, that liked the corporate politics.
Mm.
I was aware of them. I knew that they were going on because you can't survive if you just walk naively into some of these environments.
Yes.
But I made sure that I was aware of what was going on. I made sure that I was on point as far as my skills, capabilities, experience, what
Hmm.
I brought to the table.
Yeah.
Um,
Excellence. Yes, ma'am.
yes, yes, I held my own standard very high because I came from a household where I was told, and it was drummed in my head,
Yes.
you have to work twice as hard to get half as far.
Mm.
And so
I worked very, very hard, um, and to get to the level of where I was, but I was aware of what was going on around me, and I made sure
Hmm.
that I was aware of it, not being consumed by it or assimilating to it,
Yes.
but being aware of it and acting accordingly.
Yeah, I feel like every black child in America has been told
Yeah.
work twice as hard to get half as far. But that doesn't really make sense, does it? How did that make you feel? That's not fair.
Well, no, it's not fair. It's not equitable, and it's definitely double whammy because I'm a woman and I'm a woman of color. And so it's not fair. But I think, like my father, many parents who were in they were very much aware of what was happening from the standpoint of think about what was happening, civil rights
Mhm.
and all of the things that were happening. They knew what the world was like. They knew what was going on in the
Yes.
United States, and so that's why they tried to prepare us as best they could, knowing that they were sending their children out into a world that wasn't fair, it
Mm.
wasn't equitable, it wasn't inclusive, and so they were doing what they could to prepare us. And
Yes.
so, for me, I'm thankful for that upbringing. I'm
Mm.
thankful that my parents were very, very open about the world and the environment. I'm
Yes.
thankful for the experiences that I had growing up because it helped to prepare me
Mm.
for the person I am today and prepare me for the environments that I've been in. When you're the first and the only in certain rooms,
Mhm.
you have to be strong, you have to be aware, and you have to be the type of person who is going to speak up
Yes.
when you see things that are wrong.
That is so true. And how did these experiences kind of shape the legacy you are going to leave behind?
Oh wow, Bob. I hope that I have instilled in my children that some of what my parents told me, that the world is not fair and equitable, and
Mm.
you know I want them to understand that for my son being a black man, that there are challenges that happen. um, you might get stopped by the police just being black, so we didn't just have the talk when he was getting his license, it was the talk
Yes.
about what you do when you're pulled over, hands on the wheel, don't make any movement. It's a shame that we have to have these conversations with our sons, but
Yes.
we did, right? With my daughter, I taught her that, as a black woman, it's going to be extremely hard, it's going to be tough, but you need to be able to elevate your voice, you need to be able to speak up
Mhm.
when you see that something is going on, you don't let people take advantage of you.
Yes.
And
Wow.
so that same legacy that I want to leave for my children is the same legacy that I want to leave for young people and for people in general that are struggling with whatever they may be facing in their environment.
Mm. That is really powerful. We have our first question from the audience. Daniel from Maitland, Florida says, Celeste, how do you personally coach leaders of color who discover a white colleague sitting right next to you is earning significantly more, often multiple more? How do you
Oh
coach?
yeah, I've had that conversation a lot. um, and so the first thing that I tell the individual is, you have a conversation with your manager,
Mm.
and everyone is entitled to a compensation assessment, a compensation review. And you simply just go to your manager and say, I have reason to believe. You don't have to narc on your colleague like
Mhm.
I did and say, look, I had this conversation and she told me she's making this and I'm making this. What's up with that? But you can have a conversation with your immediate manager or your HR business partner, but you should go to your manager first and say, I really, um, I've been able to do X, Y, and Z. You've been very happy with my performance. You have called on me to do various different projects, initiatives. My performance has been very good. You've given me that feedback,
Yes.
and I'm assuming all of this is the case. Um, I've taken on extra responsibilities. The scope of my role has expanded
Hmm.
in the time that I've been in it. I would just like to have a compensation review on my salary compared with my peers.
Yes.
Just
That's
ask that question, and it'll be interesting the conversation that you get back. But most managers, they're supposed to take those conversations to their HR business partner.
mhm.
And depending on the organization, an analysis should be done.
That is really powerful. I think the first time when I first came to the US, I worked with the University of Alabama because we got, I think, more than half of our funding from the state. So all of the salaries were actually public. I didn't know that, but then I found out we had like a huge blue book at the library. You could go, everybody who's employed by the university, their name and how much they get paid. So I
Mhm,
went there and I looked, I was like, what in the world? I'm getting way, way underpaid. So I
mhm.
was happy until I saw that, but obviously I didn't stay very much longer where I was able to find people who actually valued my experience. But it's I don't know. The military isn't perfect, but I kind of like the way the U.S. military has evolved through time. Of course, when black starting being soldiers, they got paid. I think it was about 30% less than their white counterpart for some reason. And on top of that, blacks had to pay for their own uniform too. White
Oh,
soldiers
wow.
didn't. But eventually, that got fixed, and I think because of black men in the military, even when women got in, now everybody gets paid exactly the same. It's published. It's out there in the open.
Yeah.
Depending on your rank, your grade, and the number of experience you have, everybody knows exactly how much money you make. Everybody makes exactly the same, which I think is very, very equitable. But it didn't happen overnight, though.
Yeah,
I
yeah. People
just
had to
wish,
fight for it. Yeah. And
yeah.
transparency is really important
Hmm.
in a lot of these cases, because when an organization is transparent with its policies and practices,
Yeah.
um, people you can start to build trust with your employees, because
Yes.
that's a perfect example. It's transparent. If you're at this level, this is what your pay grade is, this experience,
Mhm.
etc. And it's the same for everyone. So yeah,
So true.
lessons could be learned from that.
Yeah, and also because no, I'm married to a woman, I have two daughters. I don't understand why in 2026 women still makes about what 80 cents on the dollar. So why would my daughter get paid a lot less than their male counterpart in
Mhm.
2026? What in the world is going on in this country?
It didn't crop up overnight. It take a
Uh,
long time to try to fix it, and it's unfortunate because let me back up. It shouldn't take a long time to fix it, because if you see and you do the analysis with your organization and see that there's inequities when it comes to pay, um, then how you rectify it is by closing the gap.
mhm.
You just close the gap. It's that simple of a rectification, how you rectify the challenge and the problem.
Yes.
The intervention is simple. The challenge, the question is, why don't you?
Mm,
Right? Because when you do your analysis, any organization that does an equity analysis, you see where the inequity is. And you do it based on, like jobs, like
yes.
experience, like performance levels, and so all of that, and following all of the legalities that you need to be following to be able to
Mhm.
assess. And once you do that analysis and you see that there are gaps, then you close it. You close it by paying the people what they should be paid, right? You
So
go in
simple.
first, you open it up, and you give them money. So the
Yeah.
intervention is not complex.
Yes.
That's what you do. Now, the other piece of it is, and I say that tongue in cheek, but other interventions, and I always believe you have to take a multi-pronged approach, because
Mm,
you don't want to be pouring water into a bucket that has a hole in it, right? Because it's just going to seep right out. Because if you just do sort of a one-time payment, that fixes it for that moment. But you have
mhm.
to look at, again, the systems. You look at the
Yes.
systems around. You look at What are your hiring practices when it comes to offers? How do you look at that when you bring someone in? How do you assess their how they should be paid?
Yes.
When you're doing promotions, when you're doing merit increases, when you're doing salary adjustments, when you're all
Mm.
throughout the process, when you're doing these things, do you have a sort of system that looks at the same things, the same criteria to assess
Yes.
what someone should be paid? Do you
Mm.
have training for your managers and your talent acquisition advisors, your recruiters, your staffing consultants, your talent management people?
Yes.
Do you have training that talks about, especially hiring managers, around how do you take bias, understanding your own bias that you have and making sure it doesn't enter into decisions that you're making in the hiring process? So,
Sure.
you take this multi-pronged approach to make sure that you're looking at the whole situation, the whole ecosystem, to make sure
Yes.
that the problem doesn't happen again. Because otherwise,
Mm.
you know, you're just throwing money at the problem when you need
Yes.
to be looking more holistically at it.
Wow, that is so powerful. Great segue for our next segment about building organization where people thrive, which you talk about in your books as well. One thing you've said that really touched me is inclusion is not an initiative. You say it's leadership. What does that mean?
One of the things that used to irritate me, like someone taking their fingers on a chalkboard, was when I would get asked a question. So tell me about your diversity inclusion program.
Mm.
And when someone asks you that question, I immediately understand their lack of understanding, their
Yes.
ignorance, if you will, of what diversity, equity, and inclusion truly is. It's not a program. You have to look at it as a business imperative, a competitive advantage, a leadership, a strategic leadership value add, and a management strategy. So, you look at it from the standpoint of diversity is simply differences in people, those you can see and those you can't see. Inclusion is what you have to surround those people with, because they're so different. They have different skills, capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
experiences, identities, cultures, life experiences. They have different obstacles and barriers that are getting in the way for them to be able to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to take and surround them with a culture of inclusion so they
Mm.
feel valued, engaged, empowered to get to that collective purpose in
Yes.
an organization. And that collective purpose is usually the mission or vision of that organization. Where
Mm.
equity comes in is when you meet those people where they are, because they're different. They came from different starting points. Everybody
Yes.
didn't start at the starting line when the gun went off. Some people were at the 10-meter mark. Some people were at the
Mm.
20-meter mark. But you meet them where they are. You find out what they need to succeed, and you put acts of equity in
Mm.
place to get them to that collective purpose. And
Wow.
everyone's blueprint and journey is different based on who they
Yes.
are as a person and individual. And that's what I call management 101,
Mm.
leadership 101. You have to meet your team members where they are and give them
Yes.
what they need to succeed
Wow.
from a
Powerful.
professional standpoint, from a performance standpoint, from a development standpoint, from a career aspiration standpoint. And
Yeah.
so, from a business standpoint, I say that marketing 101 is understanding your customer base.
Mm-hmm.
And customers are very, very diverse. And so, in order to understand and make sure that everyone is going to benefit from the product and the services that you provide, you have to understand the market. You have to understand the
Mm.
customers, and you do customer segmentation. So you look at the diversity of the customer base and understand and do the assessment to say, is there one group of customers that
Yes.
isn't buying our product, that isn't taking advantage of our services, and why? So
Mm.
any business person who understands marketing and commercialization strategies understand they have to understand the diversity of their customer base.
Yes.
So
Wow.
the way that I approached it is You have to approach it as not diversity, equity, and inclusion on the outside, banging on the walls of the organization trying to get in. You have to start from an inside out approach. So when
Yes.
you are thinking about your people strategies, when you're thinking about your business strategies, you start first with making sure that you're not leaving anyone behind.
Mm.
You start
Wow.
first with thinking about it from an inclusion mindset. You start thinking about it from, how do I make sure that I'm not creating something that is inherently biased? So you
Mm.
do all of that, and you start from the beginning when you are creating the strategy, developing the intervention, the initiative. So that's
Powerful.
why I feel so strongly that it's not something that is a program or um, something that's very myopic. It
Yes.
is all encompassing, and it's not a leadership is not a soft skill. Remember
Mhm.
back in the days they had soft
Yeah.
skills. They called, leadership and management skills were soft skills, and finance, IT, all of those other ones were the
Hard
business
skill.
skills, the hard.
Yeah.
And so in this day and age, leadership, management, those are crucial
Yeah.
skills that everyone needs to have if the organization is to succeed.
Wow. And didn't also the research clearly shows that diverse team outperform homogeneous team like on
Mhm.
every aspect? Is pretty amazing. So if you actually like money, you like to be profitable, that's actually the right thing to do, isn't it?
It's like I said, if you want to be profitable, if you want a successful business, you
Yeah.
have to be able to integrate equitable practices. You have to
Yeah.
be able to take bias out of the system. You have to understand different people across different dimensions of diversity.
Mm.
Um, it's a
Yes.
competitive advantage, and it's critical.
So true, and I think that really helps build trust as well, and that's how your employees really become. I want to say loyal, but they even go above and beyond when they know that management actually cares for them as an individual and doesn't have unfair practices like paying my colleague here more money just because they are a white or male or whatever the case might be. Talking about trust, I think it's Peter Drucker, right, who said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So as you build this culture, how do you build a culture of trust? Because it seems to me like trust is really the one essential thing you need to have in a high performing organization. So how do leaders build trust across people with different backgrounds and perspective?
Well, let's go back to what I was talking about when I gave the definitions for diversity, equity, and inclusion. When you're having those conversations with people on your team and you're meeting with them, a lot of managers, they meet infrequently with their team. Like they'll have a staff meeting once every other month or whatever. Don't even meet one on one with their team members. So you have to meet one on one with your team members.
Yes.
You have to understand all of those differences, all that diversity that exists. You have to understand what are their skills, what are their capabilities, what are their strengths, what are their areas for development, what are their life experiences, what are those obstacles and those barriers that are getting in the way from them being able to be successful. Then
Yes.
you as you learn all those things, then you put things in place to help them to be successful. You blow obstacles out of their way. And
Mm.
when you're doing that, as you're doing that, you're developing that trust
Yeah.
because they're looking at you and saying, "Wow, he sees me. He
Yes.
he is listening to me. He understands the challenges that I face. He's
Mm.
willing to help me be successful." And when you do that, not only are you
Wow.
building a stronger employee, but that employee is starting to trust you. And
Yes.
when
Wow.
they trust you, they're giving you that discretionary effort that you mentioned before. They
Yes.
are willing to take that hill with you. And in
Mm.
times of business and organizational volatility, you want employees that are going to say, "I'll take that hill with you." Because how many
Mm.
times have you see cartoons where the leader is getting ready to go up the hill and they're like, let's take this hill. And he's
Yes.
about halfway up, looks behind him, and they're all down still at the bottom of the hill, just
Yeah.
looking at him, say, yeah, you go on.
Yes,
Because,
yes.
they're
Wow.
like, no, I don't trust you. I don't trust you in good times. You think I'm going to
Mm,
trust you in challenging times?
so true. And
Mhm.
I think for I have a large following from all of the branches of the military, and I think that's one thing the military does very, very well, right? We say mission first, but people always. That's probably
Mhm.
why a young kid would be willing, right, to go to Iraq, Afghanistan, or put their life in danger for a mission so much bigger than themselves, especially the way their senior enlisted or their commanding officer really treats them and see them as an individual and how they kind of fit into the big
Mhm.
uh, picture. Wow, that is so powerful. So, what would you advise a new CEO or a commanding officer, someone who takes charge of an organization, let's say tomorrow? What would be the first three things you would assess about the culture of their organization?
Well, the first thing I would say is what are the values, the fundamental values and
Mm,
standards of the organization?
yes.
And usually they center around, dignity, respect,
Mm-hmm.
um, adding value to our customers, etc. And then once we've had that conversation around the values and the standards, then you look at the policies, the procedures, and the
Mm-hmm.
practices to see if those values and standards are embodied
Yes.
in those policies, procedures, and practices. How you pick leaders, how you promote people, how you
Mm,
develop business strategies for your customers. Is it embodied in there? And if there's a disconnect, if there is not alignment, then my conversation with that CEO is you have a problem
yes.
because you're not walking the talk.
Mm.
And so then it becomes an assessment to say where the gaps are, and then how do you close those gaps?
Wow, powerful. So powerful. Yeah, I speak about it all the time every year. And when I talk to C-level executive, one thing I ask them is, what are the core values of your own organization? Most of them have an idea, but they have no idea specifically what those values are. And I think that's a big problem. You cannot be a CEO, CISO, or CIO, and you have no idea what the specific core values for your organizations are. Because in my opinion, the way you lead your organization or your function ought to be completely aligned with those values that you say your organization stands for. And if you don't even know what those values are, they just kind of, oh, let me check the website, or I have an idea of what they might be.
Uh-huh.
That is a problem. I know in the military it's really drilled into us. It's almost like we get brainwashed. Like for me, as a US sailor, my core value wake me up any time of the day or morning. It's like honor, courage, commitment. It's drilled into me. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. That's how we live, and that's how we do everything that we do. And that really makes a huge difference, in my opinion. That's powerful. All right, so
Why another reason why it's powerful, Bob, is, I was the leader of a manufacturing division for years, and it's important that not only the CEO and the executive team
mhm,
know it, but the employees have to know it, the
yes,
managers have to know it, the leaders have to know it, because when you're sitting on third shift in a manufacturing environment or plant, and the infrastructure, the leaders aren't around, and it's
mm,
you and your team sitting on third shift, 3 in the morning,
yes,
something happens. If you don't understand those core values, and if they aren't penetrating into the policies, the practices, procedures,
mm,
the leadership behaviors, the management protocols, if they're not embedded in there, that manager at 3 o'clock in the morning, what are they going
yes,
to do? Right?
mm,
When a situation
powerful,
arises. That's why it's so core that everybody understands those values and those standards, and that
yes,
they live through the policies and practices of your organization. Because it's what people do
mm,
when people aren't looking that counts.
yes. That is so powerful. It reminds me of JFK, right, when he had that vision about us going to the moon, which was just transformative. But I think he went to visit NASA, and there was a janitor. And people would say, "Oh, a janitor, your job is to clean toilets or whatever." But it's like, okay, what do you do here? And he told the president, "My job is to take the next man to the moon." As a janitor, that was his mission at NASA.
That's
That
beautiful.
was quite impressive. No, all the way from the CEO, all the way down to the lowest ranked individual in your organization, when everybody is aligned and they all move in the same direction. I mean, that's really
Mhm.
power, isn't it? Okay, we do have to talk about your book. I could talk with you for hours and hours, but I have to talk
We have
about,
been talking about my book.
yeah, the truth about equity. We need to talk about that. Why did this book have to be written?
Well, I felt that the book needed to be written because, we had this rise of social activism. We had, in 2020, and history has shown us that when there's a rise of social activism, a period of that, the
Yes.
civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement, the Stonewall movement, when there is a rise in activism, the pendulum swings the following years into a rise of conservatism.
Mm,
History has shown this. It's just up and down, ebbs and flows,
yes.
pendulum swinging back and forth. And so in 2020, with the murder of George Floyd
Mm,
and Breonna Taylor, with the pandemic forcing us to be still,
mhm,
with all of the companies and organizations and institutions saying that they were behind and rising in solidarity. We saw all of this, many of which, arguably much,
yeah.
performative in nature. But then we started to see that pendulum swinging, right?
Yeah.
And so even as early as 2022, it just started swinging. And then 2023, Roe v. Wade was reversed, and
Yeah.
you just started seeing things. And so for me, writing this book, I started to see the pendulum swinging back. And then it just sort of pounded back, in 2024, 2025. And
Mm,
I felt that it was important to write it because there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of
yes.
strategic disinformation that was out there in the stratosphere
Mm,
about what people thought equity was.
yes.
And in my first book, I specifically talked only about diversity and inclusion. And I actually stated in the book that I was not going to talk about equity because at the time people were still trying to understand diversity and inclusion and how
Yes.
they fit into it. And so, here comes the time a few years later, it's like, okay, Celeste, you said you weren't going to talk about equity in your first book.
Yes.
When are you going to talk about equity? And
Yes.
what
Yes.
is it? And why is it so important? And so when all of this was happening, it sort of became the perfect storm for, I got to
Mm,
get the voice of reason out here. I have to let people know what it is, what it isn't, and they need to understand that when it's done correctly, it is a benefit for everyone.
everyone, including white, male, Christian,
Everyone. Yeah.
heterosexual
Yes.
folks. But it's incredible. I really like what you said about the pendulum because it looks like electing the first African American president is really what gave us the complete total opposite, which is President Trump now. And as of January 2025, last year, it seems like DEI has become a four-letter word for most of corporate America. It was really amazing to me to see the transformation, just the change, almost like on a drop of a
Mhm.
dime. All this, like I said, it was, I guess, just performative. It didn't mean any of that after 2020 about how they were for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then all of a sudden, just like that, their core values are no longer core. They no longer count. So that was very interesting to see. But I guess one question I have for you before we even go into what the definition of equity is and what the misinformation people have, it's definitely a huge misinformation right now because I hear people say, "Oh, you are a DEI hire just because you're black or a woman," and they don't even look at your uh, qualification. I guess one question I have for you is: it seems to me like it takes a lot of courage for somebody like you to be speaking up and to kind of set the record straight. Aren't you afraid that the environment, the trend in society is completely against what you are standing for. What you're standing for might be true and it might be just, but it's not what America wants to hear right now. Doesn't that scare you a little bit?
I'm a realist and a pragmatic person. And I'm also, when I say a realist, I know what is real and what is performative
Mm-hmm.
and what is essentially kind of smoke and mirrors. And the reason why I left the organization in the role that I had was, and I laughed because people were asking me like, "Why are you leaving? Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Because I have to take this fight to the streets."
Mm.
Um, I had a lot of autonomy in the role that I had in the organization that I had, but I was still an officer of the organization, and the messages that I felt that needed to be out there needed to come from a voice that was unencumbered.
Yes.
Um, so that's the reason, one of the reasons why I want to create a world where my children, my
Mm.
children's children can enter into a workplace and environment and not fear and not be marginalized and truly be valued for what they bring to the table, their
Mm.
entire dimension, who they are, their entire dimension, their functional skills and capabilities, as
Yes.
well as their cultural experiences as well.
Mm.
Um, and so for me, I said I'm a woman of faith, and so I have on the full armor of God with me.
Yes.
And so it was more than a job for me. It was my calling. It was my
Yes.
purpose. And so I'm simply living in my purpose right now and speaking with people and spreading the word that is very important. And so when I talk about realism, people that understand the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion understand that it can't be stopped.
Yes.
They understand that diversity is simply differences in people.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that they have to have a culture of inclusion where everyone feels like they have a sense of belonging, because that's how they're going to get the optimal performance out of their employees.
Yes.
They have to understand, and they know because they've been doing it, those acts of equity. They've been
Mm.
studying their customer base. They've been putting marketing strategies together that are targeted towards Black people and Latino
Yes.
people and Asian people and LGBTQ plus people.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing this work all along. They know it creates a competitive advantage. And
Yes.
so the work hasn't stopped, which is
Mm.
what because that's good clickbait. That's
Yes.
good clickbait for media, for different things. And so people need to understand that in these shareholder meetings of these Fortune 500 companies,
Mm-hmm.
these proxy and these proposals come up about, we need to do away with diversity, equity, inclusion. Your company needs to do that. They've been voted down.
Mm.
99%, 98% voted down by the shareholders.
Wow.
Company after company after company after company. So
Yes.
the shareholders know what's up. The
Wow.
senior leaders understand what's up.
Yes.
They can call it something different. They
Mm-hmm.
can, hide underneath this umbrella or this tent, so
Yes.
they're not in the crosshairs of what's happening
Mm.
and not targeted, but they know they have to do the work. And
Wow.
so at the other end of this pendulum, because the pendulum is going to swing again, um, everyone will come out of the shadows and start saying, "Oh, we'll have the same
Yes.
the same companies that were performative, they'll be performative again. The
Mm-hmm.
companies that were continuing to do the work, they might get a little bit more vocal again and get a little bit more courage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those companies that still stayed the course, courageous, still talking about it, will come out as winners as well. So,
Wow.
I know the pendulum is going to continue to swing. History has taught us that, and
Yes.
and I want to continue the work that I'm doing because this is me living in my purpose.
Wow. Because I mean, the way it felt like it's almost like your own government coming against you,
Hmm.
right? And you said the word courage earlier. Where do you think your courage comes from?
Oh gosh. Well, it comes from my parents, first of all. The combination of their leadership, my upbringing.
Yeah.
You don't grow up in a household with four siblings, and you're the next to the youngest without having courage. Otherwise, you don't eat when the food comes on the table.
Yes. Yes.
So my environment that I grew up in was such that had that courage. Being a
Mm,
student athlete, I think,
yes.
playing sports helped me to develop courage as well. Um,
That's
and
powerful.
just coming up in a kid at 17 and spending those formative years in Kentucky in the South gave me courage.
Yes.
Um, so I think just throughout my walk of life,
Mm.
each environment that I was in, I became a little bit more courageous.
Wow, that is powerful. And for all of the people who are listening live right now, what would you tell them to encourage them to keep doing the work? No, like we've said, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's going to make your team a lot more performant. I mean, the science is extremely clear about that, and it's very good for all of the people, all of them who are working on your team. What would you advise all of the young leaders listening uh, encourage them to do the right thing because I think everybody knows what right looks
Hmm.
looks looks like, but I think a lot of people are just scared. What would you tell them to encourage them?
Well, the first thing I would say is I call these my three stays. First thing is stay relevant. So
Yes.
stay relevant as far as your skills, your capabilities.
Mhm.
But then also, excuse me, but also stay relevant about what's happening externally in the
Yeah.
political, the economic time frame. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Stay relevant about what's happening externally, so you know what's happening from a political, economic standpoint, a social standpoint.
Yes.
So stay relevant. Stay supportive of each other.
Mm.
Reach out to each other, help each other. Hey sis, how you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yes.
I saw what happened in the meeting. You want to talk about it. Stay supportive of each other is really, really important. And then the last thing, stay in the fight. You
Mm.
can't give up. I know the times are tough, the times are hard, but you got to keep going. You got to keep fighting. And if you're not going to fight for yourself, fight for the thousands and thousands of people
Mm.
who haven't felt empowered to elevate their own voices. They haven't felt that encouragement yet. So speak up and stay in the fight. That's what's so
Mhm.
important. Stay relevant, stay supportive, and stay in the fight.
Wow, that is powerful. One thing that jumps in your book too is the analogy you make between fence and rocks. Can you explain more about
Yeah.
that?
We've all seen that illustration, that cartoon where it has three individuals. They're standing on one rock and they're facing a fence. The person on the right can't see over the fence at all.
Yeah.
The person in the middle can barely see over the fence. The person on the left can clearly see over the fence.
Hmm.
In the second illustration, the person on the right has been given two additional rocks. They can see over the fence now. The person in the middle has been given one additional rock. They can see over the fence. And so those rocks are acts of equity in my analogy. Those
Powerful.
rocks are acts of equity that have been given to them so they can see over the fence, so they can have access to opportunities that the person that was on the one rock in both illustrations, they could see over the fence. And in my analogy, the fence are what I call the isms:
Mm.
racism, sexism, ableism, ageism, homophobia,
Hmm.
all of those things that they didn't crop up overnight. And so it's going to take a longer term strategy to kind of pull them
Wow.
away from structures and systems, etc. And so we are doing the acts of equity. And what's happening is those acts of equity are causing disruptions in organizations, in society, in universities, because
Mm.
the person who was standing on one rock in both illustrations, they're looking to their right and they're saying, well, you have 3 rocks, you have 2 rocks, and I only have 1. That's not fair. I'm being left behind. What's going on here? Why are they get those?
Mm.
And they don't realize that the fence is there because they've always been able to see over it. They don't realize how the fence, how those behaviors manifest themselves to his colleagues to the right. They don't
Yes.
understand how some of the marginalization, being skipped over, all of the things that happen to his colleagues to the right, they don't understand
Mm.
that that's happening. So while we're doing this work, what we have to do is, yes, we have to put the acts of equity in place. We have to put the rocks in place. We have to also simultaneously tear down the fence because we have to do the longer term strategy as well. And then we
Yeah.
also have to have conversations and dialogue with that individual who is standing on one rock in both illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's not our job to teach them per se, but we need to provide them with resources so they can understand that the fence is there,
Yeah.
how it manifests itself to his colleagues to the right. And
Mm.
then not just so he gets it intellectually, but getting him to be active allies, getting them to be active allies, get in the boat, grab an oar, and help us to row up the river because we need everyone or as many people as possible to
Mm-hmm.
help us to create the culture that we want to see, which is that third illustration where the rocks are gone. We don't need the acts of equity because we've torn down the fence. We've torn away the institutional biases
Yes.
and isms, and we've had conversations with that individual. And so the rocks are gone, the fence is torn down, and everybody benefits. Everyone can see the beautiful mountains ahead. Even
Yeah.
the person that was standing on one rock that could see over the fence, with the fence gone, his vision is much more widened because he can see
Yes.
up, he can see down, he can see
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, July 4th is coming, and America is a country of contradiction. No, because our Declaration of Independence, it was so wonderful. I mean, it was really world changing when we say all men are created equal, but it was so aspirational, though, because definitely black people were not included, even women were not included, only white male, and so I think it's very easy to see how it's been systemic from the very beginning, but no, thank God there's been a lot of progress. But but I guess one phrase that keeps coming at me when I read your book is really everyone wins when we get equity right. And
Yeah,
I think one of the lies right now is if you keep promoting qualified women and people of color, therefore you are discriminating against white Christian heterosexual male, which is really not the case. Can you expand on what that really mean? I think that's, to me, it's almost like really the center of the message that you are saying. If you do get this equity thing right, everybody, including white men, are going to win too. Can
yeah.
you expand on that?
Yeah, so in my analogy, where the individual with one rock, they look to their right and they say, "Well, you have 3 rocks, you have 2 rocks. That's not fair." That's one of the myths of equity,
Hmm.
that you're giving preferential treatment to one group over another. And that individual, they had 1 rock in the first illustration. They had the same rock in the second illustration. They didn't lose anything. Not
Yes.
one thing. They could see over the fence. Their colleagues couldn't see over the fence. They didn't know it,
Hmm.
but they just saw the rocks. And
Mm.
so that's one of the myths about equity. It isn't about giving preferential treatment of one group over another. That's not what it's
Yes.
about. Um, Instead of looking at looking at it from the standpoint of it's a pie and I need my piece of the pie, you need to be looking at it like it's a bar chart, and the bars
Mm.
can go up infinitely. It can be, there's so much opportunity
Yes.
that that there you have to look at it from that perspective. And then the second thing to your point about, well, you were just hired because you're a woman, or because you're a person of color, or because you're in the LGBTQ plus community. First of all, that's illegal. That was established back in 1960s, where you can't hire someone based on their race in other protected classes. So the law is the law. That hasn't changed in decades and decades of of that being in place. Where it's changed a little bit now is where people think because you are a woman, you were hired because they're doing this diversity thing. And that comes from a fundamental inaccurate belief that women and people in those protected classes are not intelligent, do not have skills and capabilities, are not able to perform the role.
Yes.
And that's where the whole house of cards falls down, because recruiters, their job is to find qualified candidates to bring to the hiring manager. They're not doing their job if they do that. And when the hiring manager tells them what skills, what capabilities they need for the job, what experiences they need, how many years of experience, etc., whether they need education, whether they don't, when they're telling them all of this, the recruiter knows very importantly that those skills and capabilities and experiences can be embodied in a variety of different identities.
Yes.
And that hiring manager, in their mind, when the recruiter tells them, thank you, got it, understand what you're looking for, and I'll make sure I bring you a diverse slate of candidates for you to choose from. And all of a sudden the manager says, well, wait a minute, I want to make sure they're qualified. So the next question is, well, why did you feel a need to say that when I said I'm going to make sure I bring you a diverse set of candidates?
Wow.
Because in his mind, or in her mind, if you bring me diversity in my candidates, if you bring me people of color or women or this or that, they are not as qualified, they're not as smart, they're not as intelligent, they're not as capable as those that are in the majority. And so that fundamental
that's powerful.
inaccurate belief is where all that comes from. But the recruiter knows that I can get all of those things that you need embodied in a variety of different identities. And so that's what we need to make sure that people understand. It is illegal to hire somebody based on what they look like or how they identify.
Yes.
That's the law. That's been the law since the 1960s.
Wow.
And it's still the law. You need to know that you need to check yourself and your bias that anyone who doesn't look like you is inferior to you.
Yes. That is so powerful. So it looks like we've already gone 10 minutes over. Can we still five more minutes? Can we, or do you have to go?
Pardon?
Oh, can we stay five more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Because I think your book is so important. Again, I want everybody to get a copy of this life-changing book. I think it's right on time. The Truth About Equity, what it really is, what it isn't, and why everyone wins when we get it right. What was one of the most challenging chapter you had to write?
I wanted to make it a global chapter, a book. I wanted it to not just be an indictment in the United States, because every country back in 2024, I think it was 24. No, yes, 2024. There were over 80 countries that were having elections. And that was sort of unprecedented in that time, from what I understand. And in those elections, a majority of the person who won those elections for the leaders of those countries was in a conservative party.
Yes.
So it wasn't just a US thing. This was a worldwide thing that we were seeing. And so, the issue of immigration, the issue of colorism, the issue of colonization, all of those issues, they weren't born in the United States. They came, they've been around for millennium. So, I felt that, from that standpoint, everybody needs to understand that this book is important leadership is important, organizations understanding the importance of equity, where it fits in, how it fits in is
Yes.
just extremely important.
I like that. And if there was one, this is going to be my final question about the book. If there was one message you wanted everyone to take, only one lesson from your book, what would it be?
That the work that is done in diversity, equity, and inclusion, saying that it is going away, trying to prevent it, is like trying to prevent the waves from hitting the shore. You
Hmm.
just can't do it. It's not possible.
Yes. Wow. Powerful. Okay. We are coming toward the end of the show now. What can my audience do to give value back to you? I can receive.
Well, you can go to my website, connect with me there at crwdiversity.com. You can engage with me, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Oh,
Um,
and also on your website, looks like you have a model framework people could get access to. Is that correct?
yes, the equity in action model. It is something that is available for managers. You can
Yeah.
access it on my website. It's just a simple series of mini modules. They're only about 15, 20 minutes each, and they're available for just a nominal price. But it helps you to take in equity from being an idea to putting it in action,
Wow.
and what you need to do to be a better manager leveraging equity.
Can you also tell us about your nonprofit? I'm really excited about that because I
Oh,
studied
yes.
biology and chemistry, almost got a PhD in microbiology. Can you tell us about STEM?
Yes, Destination STEM is a nonprofit. My daughter, Christina, my son, Stephen, and I started 5 years ago. And
Wow.
it's basically a nonprofit to get students of color and those in need interested in STEM related fields: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We provide learning resources, we provide leadership series, we provide scholarships
That's
for
amazing.
students that are going to be pursuing STEM related degrees. So it's something
Wow.
that is near and dear to my heart. Again, something that continues to help me to walk in my purpose. And check it out. You know, we need people to help us. Donate would be
Yes.
great. Volunteer. Just reach out. You can also go to that one. It's destinationstem.org.
Fantastic. And when we click on the donate sign, so they can give money, I assume it's a 501c3, so it's tax exempt as well,
It
right?
is, yes,
Fantastic.
501c3.
I love it. And for the people who follow the podcast, they know I really believe in the power of $5 because, believe it or not, we raised over $1 million for Ukraine when the war first started. All I asked for my people is to give $5 only. It wasn't just us, it was a bunch of other people. But initially, the goal was 1 million, and we gave so much money that they increased it to $2 million. I think they ended up raising like $2,200,000 for the people of
Well,
Ukraine.
Bob,
So,
tell them that this money, all of it goes towards scholarships and
wow.
programs and things like that. And we celebrate every year at our annual fundraising banquet where we celebrate
That's
our
amazing.
scholars. We were able to double the amount of scholarships from
Wow.
last year due to companies donating and investing in us. So we want to be able to do that next
Yes.
year as well. So yes, $5, $10. Please go to destinationstem.org
Wow.
and donate. We really could use your help.
And if somebody wanted to hire you for some consulting as a diversity, equity, so forth work, how do they reach out to you?
You can reach out to me at my website, crwdiversity.com, and contact me. And it comes directly into my email box, and we can definitely connect from that standpoint. I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. All right. Before we end, is there a question I should have asked you I didn't get a chance to ask? Anything else you wanted to share today?
Oh my gosh, no, Bob. This has been a great conversation. I loved it. I loved it. Thank you.
Fantastic. So before we end, I want to do a quick. I like to do the lightning round. So I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to answer as quickly as you can, and don't take too much time thinking. Okay. So the question I want to ask. Let me. Okay. Here we go. What is leadership? Leadership is one word.
I'll say this: leadership is not for the faint of heart.
Okay, I like that. Success. Success is.
Success is in the eye of the beholder, but it's not what you might think it might be for you. It might be different for
Mm.
somebody else.
Okay, one book that you didn't write that every leader should read.
Uh, the latest book by David Glasgow and Kenji Yoshino.
I
That's
know that
just
one. Mhm.
out. Yes, yes. The title is escaping me, but Kenji is a friend of mine. David is a friend of mine, and they
Mhm.
always write spectacular books. But this one helps to guide you in this time now about the
Is it
legality.
Equality Wins? I
Yes,
believe. Yeah,
yes.
Equality Wins. And by the way, we do have a digital bookshelf. So I'm gonna make sure to add that there. I started last May with just 3 books. We have more than 500 books now. It's just
Is mine on there?
yes. Everybody I interview, yes. Your book, I actually have different shelf. One, you are one of the podcast author. You are on the current list. It's only about 100 books I keep there, and then you are in the big list, which has more than 500.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you, Bob.
Absolutely. And so, what is one leadership habit you never compromise on? You will do that no matter what.
Um, being a servant leader. If
Hmm.
I won't agree to do it myself, how can I ask somebody else to do it?
Okay.
If I
One of
have
your
done it myself,
powerful, most influential mentor.
my parents.
Yes. Okay. Best career advice you have ever received.
Don't assimilate, accelerate.
Hmm. I like that. All right. As we come to a close, I think the question I want to ask you is if America and our organization truly got equity right, like you talk about in your book, what kind of future would we create together?
I think we would create a future like that third illustration where the rocks are gone. We don't need the acts of equity. The fence is gone. The systemic issues are gone, and everyone can see the mountains ahead. And everyone can be assessed
Mm,
on, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, be assessed on the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
yes. Wow. That's the organization I want to work for. That's the America I want to see. Thank you so much, Celeste. I really appreciate you being on the show. And last question I ask every guest, if you can, first, one thing you feel optimistic about these days.
I feel hope that um, this next generation, I talk to a lot of universities and university students and high school students, and they give me hope because
Yes.
they see what's important. They understand the importance of inclusion and equity.
Mm,
They see that they're the most diverse generation ever in the history
yes.
of the world. So that gives me hope. They give me hope.
Yes, indeed. Those are my daughters, Naomi and Zoe. They give me a lot of hope for what America could be. And one word that represents our shared experience on this podcast, and this is the last question.
Engaging.
Engaging. I am so grateful and privileged that you finally are here, Celeste Warren, TEDx speaker and diversity uh, officer extraordinaire. So you're really doing God's work and keep doing it. You are really making a difference. Such a great encouragement and inspiration. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for the invitation, Bob.
All right, everybody, this is one for the book. Again, let's support Celeste and her work. Get a copy of The Truth About Equity. It's available everywhere books are sold. I would also say to get a copy of her previous book, How to Be a Diversity and Inclusion Ambassador, and follow her on LinkedIn and contact her if you want her to be a consultant for your organization, and also support her nonprofit, right? DestinationSTEM.org. And for me, as a military man, I really feel like STEM is really a national security issue, right? For some reason, in America, less and less people really get into those art sciences, and I think we absolutely have to compete. We have to compete, against China and Japan and all of those other country. For example, when I was a student at the University of Alabama, all of the art sciences, whether it's physics, biology, chemistry, most of the people there were Asian. You hardly found a single American in those schools. It's like that's not right, right? English is good, yeah, music and all of this thing, business, nothing wrong with that. But we do need more and more people in the STEM field. And I think it's so critical. That's part of the reason why, since I was a junior officer, I always volunteered to go to the STEM science, what do you call them? Um, Science research where the science fair, right? Students have project, and many times I would represent the Office of Naval Research and give some of the student award and really encourage them to be in science. Because if you think about it, even GPS, right? That has completely transformed the world. The Navy was the one who came up with that, and now it's really benefiting the entire world. So we need more and more people to really get into those sciences. Huge fan. So please support destinationstem.org. All I'm asking for you to do to just give $5. And if everybody who follows this podcast, about 66,000 of you, do that, we could raise over $300,000. That's pretty amazing. And $5 is only the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee. And you could really make a difference in the life of a child who could maybe eventually develop the next emerging tech. Who knows? All right. So that's all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching. And in a couple of hours, I'm going to be speaking with CF Jackson. We're going to be talking from dreamer to media mogul, building a legacy through TV and storytelling. I'm so excited about that. And I should have another interview tomorrow. I will let you know later today on LinkedIn who that's going to be. And this weekend and on Saturday, I don't have an interview, but I'm going to be going back to the book of Proverbs. We're going to be studying Proverbs chapter 26. This is not a religious podcast. It's about the ancient wisdom and leadership lesson from a book written more than 2,000 years ago that I believe is still relevant today, because those leadership principles are, I believe, eternal and universal. So looking forward to that. All right, that's all I have planned for you today. I'm going to play another short clip about our illustrious speaker today. And again, I want everybody to support her, but thank you so much for watching. And I hope to see you in a couple of hours when we speak with CF Jackson. Bye for now.
I wanted to talk a little bit about equity, what it is, what it isn't, and why everyone wins if we get it right. Equity is leadership 101, management 101, marketing 101. It's all of those things that make up a good marketing strategy, a good leader, and a good manager. But what equity isn't, it isn't preferential treatment. It's being able to give someone what they need in order to thrive. I don't believe that our diversity inclusion strategies were designed to leave white cisgen men behind. I just don't believe that. And the reason why is because we've tried to make sure that it has been inclusive of everyone. And I just don't feel that anyone that's doing the job well had that intention in mind, had that strategy in mind, didn't develop these strategies to say, well, let's just leave them behind because they're already in the positions of power, because we knew we wouldn't succeed if we left anyone behind.
You know, some folks want to say that we should have a meritocracy. I believe we should have a meritocracy as long as we give everyone what they need to be successful, as long as we give everyone access to equal opportunities, as long as we're putting together equitable and fair practices for everyone. So we truly can judge people by the content of their character.
Some of us start at the starting line, some start at the 20-meter line, and some aren't even out of the locker room. That's life.
Diversity is differences in people, those you can see and those you can't see. You have to surround them with a culture of inclusion so you're able to leverage those differences to a collective purpose.
Equity is not just a policy or a program. It is deeply personal for a lot of us. It's more important than ever now to approach things thoughtfully and strategically to make progress in today's complex environment. Progress may be slow, but it's built one person, one action and one moment of courage at a time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If today's episode added value to your leadership journey, be sure to subscribe, share, and join us again for more wisdom nuggets on how to lead better and achieve greater success. Remember, leadership is the most critical skill of our time. The world will always need leaders to inspire others, drive innovation, and execute meaningful strategy. So why not count yourself among the bold leaders shaping the 21st century? Until next time, stay inspired, stay committed, and keep leading with excellence.